start off really with the interest rate. Do you reckon it's going to be enough?
No, definitely not. We're still even at 2%. We're still 1.5, 1.75, 2% higher than the major economies in the world. And there's just what has been driving the New Zealand dollar for a very, very, very long time is the fact that they're getting good interest rates in a good, stable country, politically stable country that's got good fundamentals behind it. And the money's been pouring in for interest that they can't get anywhere else in the world. And it goes down to the fact that the world printed a huge amount of money to try and buy its way out of the 2008-9 problems. Maybe we should have helicopter money instead, but no, we didn't. We gave it to the banks that paid off their debt and got themselves out of the poo, and then they invested, and fund managers invested. They could borrow money for 0.25% and invested in New Zealand for, at the time, 3.5%. And I think we're really starting to learn the lessons of putting up the interest rate to 3.5% about 2 years ago. It certainly raised the benchmark as far as the international investors were concerned that New Zealand is a good place to put money. And we're just slowly trickling it back as, yeah, they're not going to get as much as they got before, but still the fundamentals are right. If you're going to make a statement that you want to drop the interest rate to try and drive the New Zealand dollar down, then you have to be more aggressive than 0.25%. You need to drop it at least 0.5% and indicate you're going to do more, because unless we get down to 1.25%, the world's still better off to invest their money in New Zealand. So that's the way it'll be. The trouble is, virtually every other economy in the world, bar the United States, is also still trying to drive their economy, their dollars or whatever their currencies are, down at the same time. So they're all aggressively dropping their interest rates. The English are going to try and do it. The Australians want to do it. We're trying to do it, and we're still, sort of chasing each other to oblivion at the bottom. Yet we're still the ones swimming the best.
Exactly. You've been to the States?
Yeah. We spent 3 weeks in the Midwest, the flyover states as they're known, Nebraska and South Dakota.
Because people don't drive through, they fly over.
They fly over them. No one goes to those places. No one. When I went through the border control, the customs man said, "Where are you going to in the States?" "Oh, we're going to Lincoln, Nebraska." And he said, "Why do you go to Lincoln, Nebraska? No one goes there." I said, "Oh, we've got a relative, yada yada." And I told him the story about a distant relative. He said, "That must be true. No one could invent a story like that." So stepped past before we went. But no one goes there, which is a real pity. The states are booming, seriously booming. Nebraska, big grain growing area, big cropping area. There's new tractors, there's new houses on farms. You go to Lincoln, the capital, there's new commercial buildings, there's sky cranes around everywhere, commercial cranes around everywhere. There's new housing, there's new businesses. The Midwest states are booming, absolutely booming, going really well.
Donald Trump going to fix that?
Very interesting. The only posters that were up when we were there were Trump posters, and then even then, not many, because we're a long way out. We're still 12, 13, 14 weeks away from the election. So things are not, if the election was held today, Trump's in by a mile. Like Hillary's not even going to be close. He's going to get in so easily. But we've got a long way to go, and lots of things can happen. But just to give you an indication, don't believe the polls. We asked a lot of people what's going to happen in November. And a classic example, we had several examples like this, but the classic example was when we're in a diner having breakfast, just a wayside diner in a Midwest state, and we asked this elderly lady who was serving, she's a lovely girl, lovely woman, and we said, "What's going to happen in November?" She said, no. We said, "Look, I'm from New Zealand. I'm not voting. It really doesn't matter what you tell me." She looked around, she said, "I'm voting Trump." I said, "Oh, interesting. Why are you doing that?" "We're sick of the system. But we're not telling anyone we're going to vote Trump, but there's a lot of us, I know, who are just not saying it, but they're going to do it. Because he might not be a crash hot president, but we're going to send a message to the parties. We're sick of the playing on that's going on." Hillary's boasting that she weighs 35 million in June or whatever it was. And that's exactly what they're railing against, because they know that 35 million has to be paid back with interest to the people who gave it to her.
Exactly, so they're buying the government.
They're buying the government, and they're buying the decision. You see some of the decisions, and they're just lunatic over the years. And they're saying, we're sick of it. We want our country back. We don't want to be controlled by big business.
But they won't talk about it, which is interesting.
They're not talking about it. We saw the same thing in Brexit, though, in England. The voting, the polls said that Remain was going to win. Well, it weren't even close at the end. 4 points is a lot of points difference. Not even close. And the polls did not pick it up. Well, they've been saying, the polls have been notoriously saying, "Oh, Trump's not going to you're not going to go past Super Tuesday." Well, you're wrong to pass Super Tuesday. What happened? By the time they finished the primaries, he has the most votes that any candidate has ever had in the history of the American elections. 15 million people supported him.
It's going to be interesting. We down here can pull a blanket over our heads and pretend we're not there, but you've got Boris, you've got Trump, and you've got Putin, and then stare at the Chinese.
Oh, the trifecta is just going to be so fun to watch. I am not concerned if Trump gets in. And I think at the moment, as I say, if the election was held today, he'd be in easy. I'm not terribly concerned about him getting in, simply because even if there's a Republican Senate and House of Representatives, they don't like him anyway. And so the chance of him passing any seriously nutty laws and regulations is pretty hard to imagine it's going to happen. Obama showed just if you don't have the parties on your side, Senate on your side, there's no way you're going to get legislation. And he was a good president in terms of his orations, in terms of his thinking patterns were good. Will he go down as a lame duck president? Absolutely, because he couldn't get his policies through. And I'm not so sure that even if the Republicans do hold the Senate and the House, that Trump will get things through, because there is an insurance policy to the American election cycle to stop that sort of nonsense. But at the end of the day, he is going to be saying things and doing things and getting people along that would otherwise not have been voting because they're sick and tired of the political system as they've seen it today. That's what's going to happen.
And so he's going to clean it up, clean the business up.
He is by default, I think. He won't. I don't think he can. I don't think he'll do a heck of a lot as president. He'll talk a lot. He'll be another Boris and talk a lot, insult a lot of people. That's cool. That's what's going to happen. But the party is going to start taking those sort of people seriously and saying, well, what are we doing wrong? Therefore, we have to change. We have to downsize our government. We have to downsize the lobbyists. We have to be far more listening to the people. And Brexit showed it. If you give the people the vote, all of a sudden they'll tell you what they think, which is not what the politicians thought.
Exactly, Brent. Thank you very much indeed.